I've learned a lesson today already about not relying on technology because all my notes are on that PowerPoint. So I'm going to have to try and remember what I planned to say. I've really enjoyed listening to Pat and Mary and Dallas, and actually so much of what has been said already is kind of going to be backed up with what I'm saying. But I'm taking a slightly different angle on this. I am also recovered addict. I was an alcoholic. I'd never admitted to it. I could only say that once it was in the past. But my issue was with alcohol for many, many years. So I'm going to talk about how yoga helped me and how yoga can help others to rewire the mind. So you can do the next slide. So addiction is an outward manifestation of a break in the circuit in the mind. It's a brain disease. We know that it affects the neural pathway, the reward pathway of the brain, that makes us think that alcohol, drugs, sex, Facebook, whatever it is, makes us feel good, so we want to keep doing it. But that gets hijacked by whatever our addiction is until it hits self-destruction rather than feeling good. Can you move on to the next one, please? So with yoga, many people in the West particularly think yoga is just an exercise class that you go to once a week to get a nice flexible body. And it has that benefit, but there's a way of life associated with yoga that can bring you to a place of recovery. There are a lot of parallels, as I discovered recently when I've been writing a book about this, that there are a lot of parallels between the spiritual path and the path of recovery. It's a similar sort of goal that we're aiming for. So I'm going to talk a little bit about recovery and how yoga can help us to enter a new awareness of ourselves and our lives that can lead us to recovery. We look at the whole person and not just the substance. We need to move away from this and thinking that addiction is about the substance. It's not, it's about the person. And how yoga can help you to gain insights into yourself and how you manage your lives, and how it can teach you resilience. And I'll be speaking in more depth about resilience later this week. And how yoga can actually help recovery not be easy, because I'm not ever going to tell anyone that it was easy, but it can help you do it with ease, that it can by being gentle on yourself. So we can do the next. So in order to be able to recover from addiction, there's lots that needs to be done, but excuse me, sorry. We need to move beyond the demands of the ego. The ego says, I want a drink. I'm going to have a drink, or whatever else the issue is. I want. We need to move away from that, and yoga can help us to find ways to reduce the noise of the ego. We need to look into ourselves, to not just that physical presence that you see in front of the mirror, but to look deep into who you really are. Who's that person you've been hiding behind the alcohol, the whatever else it might be. And recovery is a path to freedom. I feel freer now than I ever have, and I have less materially than I used to have, but I have freedom. I make my own choices about what I'm going to drink in the evening now. Do I have this herbal tea or that herbal tea? But I'm free to make choices that I was never able to make when my life was dictated by a need for wine. Please, next. So when we entering a new awareness, it's that moment when you realize, I need to change. This isn't working. I need to change. And you can either enter that awareness. There are many ways that you can deal with it. It can either be a fear-based need to change, or I can see a better future for myself driven. So it's that realization that you're in chaos. Your life is out of control. 12 steps talk about that more, that surrender, that acceptance that you need help. So I was in chaos, realized I was in utter chaos. And then instead of fighting against that chaos, accepting it with calm and not being scared of the chaos, but looking beyond the chaos to see what could happen next. We're looking at the whole person in yoga. It is very much a holistic approach. As Mary was mentioned, that what happens in the mind does translate into the body. So any problems in the mind will manifest themselves in the body in some way. In yoga, we talk about Adi Vyadi, which is mind and body. It's that whole mind-body connection. So there's a concept in yoga known as the fourfold awareness, which is developing awareness of the body first, and then looking at the emotions and how our emotions affect our body. You know, if you're feeling confident, you stand tall. If you're not, you hunch. And it does, even on a day-to-day basis, your mind affects how you present your body. And the thoughts that we have, how the thoughts and how we deal with our thoughts can affect our mind and our body. And then the higher self is that spiritual, that connection to spirit, and however you feel comfortable talking about spirituality, whether it's going to the top of a mountain and looking at how beautiful the world is, or going to a church and praying to your God. It doesn't matter. It's that connection with what it is inside you and connects you to that thing that's bigger than yourself. Insight. We need to, when we're in addiction, very often we don't look. I know I drank every night because I didn't want to look at who I really was. I didn't like who I was, and I didn't want to examine that person very much. But through yoga, I was forced to. There's a practice known as a swadhyaya, which is self-study, which means that you have to get to know who you really are in order to find the bits of yourself that you want to change and ways to change that. So through this practice of swadhyaya, I learnt who I am and why I'm the way I am. And once I was able to look at the past issues, that programming that we set ourselves up for from the time we first take our first breath, I was able to see the patterns that happened when I was so tiny. I had I can't blame myself for it anymore, because things happened when I was a child, and I interpreted them a certain way that led to the way I eventually led to viewing myself. But they weren't real. It was just the perceptions of a child. So having that insight into yourself can help you to make peace with your past, with things that have hurt you in the past, to make peace and forgive and move on, happy and free. And resilience is vital. You can give up a substance, but as Pat was saying, that if you just give up the substance, you're going to replace it with something else. I've tried in the past to give up smoking and drinking, and I've done exactly the same. I've ended up putting on half a stone because I ate my body weight in sweets. So resilience is that ability to cope, and it's developing that inner strength that means that when the stressful situation is going to hits you, you're not going to reach for the wine, you're not going to reach for the cigarette, you're not going to reach for the food or whatever you're going to then substitute. You're going to just take a deep breath and deal with it and then move on. That you don't need to linger on that stressful situation. You can actually just move on and move into a happier life where you've dealt with a problem. I'm going to be talking about this more on Friday, but I've looked at how we develop resilience, and I've come up with a bit of a model of the circle of resilience, and I'm going to be explaining that in my speech on Friday sometime. But in the circle of resilience, if we're trying to make a massive change very quickly, we're going to fail. So we need to take baby steps. We need to do it with kindness to ourselves and people around us. We need to be treated with kindness as well. I did it as a celebration. We celebrate the small, the tiny changes. You know, if you get through that first cigarette, you don't have that first cigarette. You manage to prolong it for an hour. You can celebrate that. That's a step forward. And I did it, the did is in capitalized, because it also means do it daily. So it's keeping that practice going until it becomes your new habit. You need your support, and you can have external support, but it's also developing that faith in yourself so that you can be your own support network. Gratitude is hugely important, and that relates to, you were talking about energy and looking for the positivity, and if we're looking at what we're grateful for in life, then it's much easier to find things to be grateful for than if we're always looking at the negative. What we focus on is what we see. And vision, once we get to a certain point, like when I stopped drinking, and I didn't tell myself for weeks that I was giving up drinking, because I knew that if I thought I was giving up drinking, the first thing I'd want to do would be go and buy some more wine. So I kept saying, I'm not drinking today, I'm not drinking today. And then eventually, when I was suddenly realizing how much healthier I felt, suddenly then I could see a future where I didn't drink. And then I started talking about, I'm not drinking. That took about 6 weeks before I was able to get to that place where I could actually have that vision of a future that I liked, that didn't have alcohol in it. Up until then, it'd been quite a scary idea. So the last one is ease. Now, this is a bit of a joke about Western perceptions of yoga, really. That in yoga, in the West, we talk about yoga and we think about it as being the exercise class. And so it's all about the asana. Well, it's not. Yoga is not all about the asana. But in some ways, if you look at this acronym, it could be. Yoga is all about our attitude to life, how we are to ourselves, how we are in the world. It's about the position we take in life, how we stand in the world, not just physically, but emotionally as well. It's about developing aptitude, developing skills. I've had to develop new skills of sobriety. We need to develop these new skills of getting through life without our crutch. Nature, it's recognizing our nature and our connection with nature, our oneness with the universe, with the world, with each other, with all of life, and feeling that connection and so we're not feeling isolated. We're not alone in this. We're never alone in the world. And altitude, it's that raising ourselves to new heights. And I'm really disappointed my friend Jane is not here right now because I wanted to talk about the new high that you can find in sobriety. Because I'm happier now than I was ever when I was drinking. And it's genuine happiness now. It's not the, I've had a bottle of wine and I'm really drunk kind of happiness. This is real happiness because I now am happy in who I am and I never was before. So ease, ease, the one of the core things in yoga is breathing. What can be easier than breathing? But most of us don't do it right. And if we breathe properly, if we learn to take deep, slow breaths and really focus our mind on our breath, a whole lot of problems go away. Our body needs us to take deep breaths. And if we don't do that, then it affects our mental health, it affects our physical health. So when we breathe properly, life feels easier and our bodies are healthier. And I'm going to be talking about the breath in more detail tomorrow when I'm talking about yoga for health. So if we can move on to the next, please. So again, just to recap, that to rewire the mind, these are the steps that we can look at and how yoga can help us to rewire the mind and take ourselves into a new, happy, healthy future. So thank you. I think there's a last slide. There are my talks. And if you'd like to contact me or speak to me afterwards, I would love to talk about this more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all of you. Now we can have question and answer sessions for up to 5 to 10 minutes. If anybody having any questions regarding these topics, then you can ask our guests.
Actually, this question is for any or all of you. Is what is the rate of efficacy or number of people that you've treated that actually